The first irreparable crack might have come the day it was first suggested that any governor of Alaska had inherent foreign policy credentials because at the Bering Strait, Alaska is just 53 miles away from Russia. That the governor's residence in Juneau is actually only about 130 miles closer to the Russian capital in Moscow than is New York City to Moscow reduced that thin gruel to a transparency. And now in our third story in the countdown, in her latest interview, the governor seems to have reduced herself to a punchline. Part 2 of Sarah Palin's interview with Katie Couric of CBS, and the wheels have fallen off the whole "I can see Russia from my house" thing.
Alaska has a very narrow maritime border between a foreign country, Russia, and on our other side, the land boundary that we have with Canada. It's funny that a comment like that was kind of made to, I don't know, you know, reporters.
Mocked?
Yeah, mocked, I guess that's the word, yeah.
Well, explain to me why that enhances your foreign policy credentials.
Well, it certainly does, because our next door neighbors are foreign countries. They're in the state that I am the executive of. And
have you ever been
Russia.
Involved with any negotiations, for example, with the Russians?
We have trade missions back and forth. We do. It's very important when you consider even national security issues with Russia, as Putin rears his head and comes into the airspace of the United States of America. Where do they go? It's Alaska.
It's very important when you consider even national security issues with Russia, as Putin rears his head and comes into the airspace of the United States of America. Where do they go? It's Alaska. It's just over the border. Airspace, you say. This morning, undeterred after a tour of Ground Zero here in New York City, Governor Palin for the first time took impromptu questions from the media and was asked what she thinks about how President Bush has handled the war on terror.
I agree with the Bush administration that we take the fight to them. We never, again, let them come onto our soil and try to destroy not only our democracy, but communities like the community of New York. Never again. So yes, I do agree with taking the fight to the terrorists and stopping them over there.
So far as we know, the McCain campaign, which has labored to distance itself from all things Bush, even counter-terror, has not publicly commented on that phrase. I agree with the Bush administration. Pleasure as always to be joined by Margaret Carlson, political columnist at Bloomberg News, Washington editor of The Week magazine. Good evening, Margaret.
Good evening, Keith.
Let me ask this flatly. Is this candidate still plausible, or has she now moved to something closer like self-destruction?
Keith, I can see the White House from the third floor of my house, but I don't think I'm capable of being president, vice president, or, you know, even a clerk. So that line gets repeated again and again, like the bridge to nowhere. I'm against it. It boggles the mind, because you can't keep saying something that has no meaning. It's like being Alice in Wonderland. So I think she has crossed a line, and I now see why she was kept under wraps, because today has not been a good day. The Katie Couric was not good, and these moments today where she's allowed to talk to reporters, finally, it doesn't make any sense what she says. And the idea, you know, I'm afraid to say this, Keith, because I'm going to be accused of being elite, and not just Democrats, but the media's been cowed into being afraid of that. But I don't mean to be condescending, but it's an insult to small-town people to say that Sarah Palin represents them, and therefore the way that she deals with reporters and the questions and her mastery of the facts, that's a bad reflection on small towns in this country. I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania, and I don't think that that's who we are, and I don't think that's what people want in a vice president, especially one that's a vice president to a man who's 72 years old.
Is the base support still there, or are they beginning to see her as a liability?
Well, the poll numbers are going in the wrong direction for Governor Palin, and so to that extent, I think there's some... She's not wearing well. As the novelty goes down and the light shines on her, she has not gone up in the public's estimation, even among the people that she was chosen to excite. Some of that excitement, as they get to know her, is going down. You know, the McCain campaign is so good at changing the subject. I mean, they changed the subject by, oh, maybe we won't have a convention, we have a hurricane. Maybe we won't have a debate, we have a financial crisis. Maybe I'll name this unknown governor from Alaska. That will get people talking about me in ways that are favorable for a while. Just to do anything, not to talk about Rick Davis and Freddie and Fannie Mac, not to talk about the financial crisis in its essence, which he doesn't know that much about. Just get back to the novelty item, and that's where we'll have the discussion, not on the substance of whether McCain knows the economy and whether he showed good judgment in whom he chose for his vice president.
Is the problem with novelty in an interview such as the one we just saw, that one clip about Alaska, to use the old line from the Monty Python sketch, she sort of got lost in that sentence and kind of gave up. And if you or I were on the air and we did that, it would look kind of foolish, but neither of us is responsible at any point for any sort of governmental responsibilities, even a small town or a small state. That was kind of a frightening thing to see. I'm speaking in terms of the nation.
Keith, I don't want to see a transcript of this interview. However, I think I have nouns, verbs, prepositions, and objects. And when you listen to Sarah Palin, these things are out of order. There are about 5 things she says. Take the fight to them, mission, don't blink, maverick. He's been fighting all these years for you, and these are the things that keep coming up. At the end of the Katie Couric interview, Katie pressed her on, well, just tell me what in fact has he done that makes him a maverick. It went back and forth. She couldn't come up with anything, and she said, I'll get back to you on that. So
leave a self-addressed stamped envelope and we'll send it to you. It does, and this is what it just finally struck me, it sounds like a game of Mad Libs, and you're just filling in a certain series of blanks.
Right. I'll be getting a lot of mail from people tomorrow saying, how could you say this? How condescending. But I don't think that the media needs to be cowed by Karl Rove.
No, it's not condescending. It's fearful. There's a difference, and an important difference for the country. Margaret Carlson of Bloomberg News. Bring half of them over to me. I'll look at them myself.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.